everything that I felt that I lacked. And at that moment, I told myself, I want what they have. And these individuals were cholos. I felt that I had proved the highest honor of taking a bullet for the barrio. And I remember thinking, my mother's going to receive a phone call that 3 of her children had just been murdered. Brother literally gave his life to save us. And you would think that hearing this, that would be a sign for me to tell myself, you know what, I gotta walk away. And I didn't. I did the opposite. All that did was create more hatred, more vengeance. I wanted blood. I wanted them to suffer. So I was found guilty of first-degree murder and 2 attempted murders. So they sentenced me to 33 years to life for the first degree and 2 life sentences for each attempted murder. The only ones that were there to visit me, to send me packages, to send me money, letters, cards, my family.
Yo, welcome back to the Reentry Network Podcast. It's your boy Yak.
It's your boy T.
We got another one for you guys today. We want to give a really big thank you to our audience, our fans, everybody that's in the comments, appreciating family, everyone that's appreciating everybody's stories and testimonies. That love is amazing, and keep flowing, because that just shows there's people out there that do care and are listening at the end of the day, and we really love that. So share that love. But we have another person who was sharing the love too, but she did far more than share the love. She refers somebody that has an amazing story. I want to give a shout out to Evelina for emailing the Reentry Network Podcast. When she did this, she told us a brief little story of her background, and then a friend that she knows that did some time and now is doing such great work. And so with that time, this is an individual that did a total of 26 years or 23 years. At 23, went to prison and did a total, I believe, 33 years. 26, I apologize, 26, but was sentenced was fighting 33 years. Now with that, I want to give a very warm welcome to our boy Silvestre. Thank you so much for being here. We can get an applause on there.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you for
having me here.
Thank you. I mean, out of curiosity, how was it when she referred you to be on here? How did you feel?
I felt excited.
Yeah.
Anything to just send a positive message, to our community, to the society in general. So I'm happy to be here. I was looking forward to it.
That's dope. Appreciate it. Just because even when they ask me sometimes, do you want to go do this on camera? And I'm like, I don't know. It's a little, it puts you on nerves a little bit, So,
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're up for it. Let's do it.
I'm sociable, so I like it.
There we go.
What's really was great too, you were chopping up beforehand. You brought a lot of stuff with you that can give viewers like an idea of what you experienced and what you went through as well.
Yes.
I kind of want to briefly start jumping into kind of like the upbringing and how things led to another, right?
Okay.
You talked about growing up in West LA, but you grew up in a large household at that time too, right?
Yes. Both parents from Mexico came here in the early 60s, worked in the fields. At that time, there was no opportunities. They didn't know the language, the customs, so the field was the only place where they could get a job. They worked hard. They were able to save some money and finally, bring all of us from Mexico and to a little house right here by the beach. And I remember, early childhood, fond memories of riding my bike, my brothers and I, to the beach in the summer. My sister would make us some of these delicious tuna sandwiches that to this day can't find anywhere. And, killing the crabs and, riding our ramps on their dirt bikes, popping wheelies. That was beautiful. Those are good times. But yeah, there was 5 of us, not including myself. I was the middle child. And, at a young age, I felt different. I felt like an outcast. I didn't feel that I possessed certain skills that my siblings had. My youngest, because they were the baby, so they just had privileges. My older brother, he was very intelligent. He was an artist. The oldest brother, he was good at putting things together. He was good looking. He was in shape. My oldest sister was very intelligent, always getting straight A's. And Silvestre didn't seem to do well at school. He didn't have no skill. Even when I started school, my classmates, they all seemed to be able to read. I couldn't read. I was teased because of my name, because I wore glasses, because I stuttered, because I wore shoes from Canada, because I had a large head and a small body. And I was a sensitive kid, so it hurt my feelings, and I didn't know how to express it. And I bottled it up until one day I just said, you know what? I couldn't stand it no more. I blew up, and I started to attack these kids in the second grade, entering a Catholic school. And I remember going home right after I got suspended and expecting my father to receive me with compassion. You know, what happened? ¿Cómo estás? How are you? And it wasn't that. It was just take off his belt and whip me. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need that. I need you to understand that I was just hurt. Somebody put me down, and I was a friendly kid. I wanted to be accepted just like most kids. And all that did was just reinforce the thought that maybe something was wrong with me. Maybe I was stupid. Maybe I was worthless, defective, inadequate. And it hurt me. And now I began to not only feel rejected by my peers and my classmates, but now I feel rejected by my own father.
Wow.
You know, and as it is, I already felt that he favored my younger brother. Now I'm thinking he just doesn't love me. So I thought it would be easier just to not love him either. And I began to try to hurt him indirectly.
Yeah.
And I tried to hurt who he loved the most, which is my little brother. I became abusive to my little brother. I would hit him. I would tease him. I would take his toys. I would bully him. And I became more defiant, more aggressive, more violent, more disobedient at home as well as at school. I went from being bullied to becoming a bully. I believed that if I instilled fear in kids that were coming, they wouldn't tease me. They wouldn't make fun of me. They wouldn't put me down. And what all that did is just make everybody not want to be my friends. Yeah. You know, nobody wanted to hang around with me. Nobody picked me to be part of the football team or nation ball. The girls would talk to me, I think, because they were just afraid. But I was a loner. And I was, during that time, I'm trying to find out who Silvestre is. What about Silvestre is good? I tried track and field. I tried sports. I couldn't succeed in none of them. I felt like a loser, like I was failing. And it wasn't until about the age of 12, we moved from that small little house to a larger house after returning back from Mexico, where we were for about a year. And the reason for that was that my parents were having problems. Yeah. And they separated. Yeah. And they ended up actually kicking, my mother told me this years ago, that they actually also kicked me out of the Catholic school.
No way.
And that's rare because, you know, you pay tuition.
Right.
But I was just always getting into fights, always being suspended, having detention, and knowing that I just didn't belong there, you know? I felt that I was stupid. And that's horrible to say, but I really felt it. And I was embarrassed to ask for help. I didn't want to be teased further. I didn't think my teachers would understand. Yeah. I didn't think my parents would understand. So I kept it all inside. But all that did was just consume me with all these feelings and no one to talk to about them, not even my own siblings. So at the age of 12, I remember going to a carnival in this new city that we moved in, also in LA. And I was with my younger brother and a cousin. And I remember being at this park in the evening time, and suddenly I see a lot of people just kind of like move, like if somebody important's coming through, and it caught my attention. So I look and I see a group of people just forming up one by one, dressed up really like, you know, looking sharp, cool, nice shirts, creased.
Clean,
clean. But the way that they compose themselves with confidence, with strength, with power, with courage, everything that I felt that I lacked. And at that moment, I told myself, I want what they have. And these individuals were cholos. They were gang members. And I believe that if I possessed that, no one would ever tease me. No one would ever put me down. No one would ever make fun of me and hit me or take advantage of me. And
You saw power. I feel like you saw
in that.
power.
I saw something that would keep me safe and protected, and that's all I wanted. And it helped that my older brothers, they were started hanging around with cholos already, right? So
Yeah.
they would bring them over to the house, and I would be that little brother right there, hiding, being right there, attention. My brother, get out of here, Sil.
The little one, Mom, can I go? Mom, can I go with the big bro? It's like,
but
nah.
because I looked up to them, right? They were just my heroes, and they were kicking me out, right? So I said, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna hang around with my own friends, and I started making friends at junior high. Started smoking weed, started drinking, started stealing candy at the liquor store, just doing things to fit in. Started fighting, and even though I wasn't officially from the neighborhood yet, I was doing everything that gang members do,
Right.
and they were grooming me. The way I dressed, the way I walked, the way I talked, my beliefs, and the first thing that I learned is that they didn't care if I couldn't read. They didn't care what my name was.
Wow.
They didn't care if I stuttered. They didn't care if I was poor. All that they cared about is if I was ready to represent and be violent, and that I was, because of all the hurt, the shame, the fear that I felt inside, that I was willing to do anything to be accepted and to be validated. And I noticed that the more violent that I was, the more praise I received. And that's the first time that I received any kind of praise. And I accepted it, and it was like a high. I wanted more. That pat on the back. Hey,
Right.
you got down, dog, you did it. And, oh, man, I'm like, yeah. I got the attention from my peers. I got the attention from girls. I got the fear from my enemies. I felt like I was just like, for the first time, I was somebody,
For now, this praise that you started feeling around, like this was during like a middle school when you're like 15, just to kind of get a
So
picture.
this was, this was
started like 12, right?
I started at 12, but yeah, of course, it was a process.
Gradual.
It was about to the maybe 15, 16 is when I decided, you know what, I'm gonna get jumped in. I'm tired of just kind of being just that guy. I want to be, officially from the barrio. And I told him, and my brothers had told him, hey, don't jump my little brother in. He warned them, but
Were your
they
brothers
did.
part of the hood? Or
My
no?
brothers
Good
were
question.
already from the barrio, so
Oh,
more of a
man.
reason for me to say, you know what, I want to follow that. I want to be, but I want to be greater than them, because they had a reputation. I wanted
I
to
see.
exceed that reputation. So I got jumped in, and oh man, I remember they let me have it. One of my oldest brothers, Tony, he would always, he was the enforcer. He was the aggressive one. He tried to beat sense into me. My other brother, Teodoro, he was more like calm, collected. He would like say, oh, think about what you're doing. Always, use good judgment. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to none of them. I felt that I needed to do this. This was for me. So
It's interesting that they weren't necessarily the ones you were looking up to. You were looking, which you could have, right? Because they were already part of the neighborhood, getting into those activities. But you seen something where you're like, I need to do it on my own, and I
Yes.
want to build this up for myself.
yes, yeah. I got tired of just being referred to the little brother.
Right.
I wanted to make a name for my own, and that's what I began to do. So I began to just, okay, you don't want to be with you guys. I'm gonna venture on my own, and I was violent, and it wasn't because I was brave. It wasn't because I was down or courageous. I was really afraid, and I was full of shame and feeling worthless. But I didn't want people to see that. I wanted to disguise it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show them the other side, the face that I felt that they would accept and be afraid of. And we used to use we used the word respect, but it wasn't that they respected me. It's because they feared me. Just like I didn't respect them, I feared them. I feared those older guys, you know, that were built, they had mustaches, they had tattoos, they looked intimidating. I said, I want to use that. And I did. I mastered the art of intimidation.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fighter. I couldn't fight, but I would intimidate people the way I looked at them, my tone, my voice, my stance. And that was power. And power was an addiction, and I wanted more of it. And I remember going to the juvenile hall for the first time for writing graffiti. And graffiti for me was another way of promoting myself and my neighborhood, because I wanted people to know who I was and know who I belonged to, so they would fear me and the neighborhood that I belonged to. So I started to tag, and I was pretty good at it. I was pretty good at writing, and I got arrested. I remember going to juvenile hall, and the homies would always tell me, when you go to juvenile hall, you don't ask no questions, you take off on all your enemies. And, you know, even though I went there scared, confused, not knowing what to expect, I didn't show it. I didn't want them to see that. I didn't want them to see the real me. So I went in there just, you know, who's my enemies, found them. Without even saying a word, I took off on them. And they would send you back then to Central. They would send you to, like, they called it the box for like a day. You know, you would have stripped of all your clothes. You would have just your they weren't even boxers. They were like ball huggers. And
Said ball what?
Ball huggers.
that's what they called them. You know, just like
The briefs.
briefs. You know, but
Well, just briefs.
briefs. Okay.
Ball huggers.
And just with your sheet, you know, and that was it. But you come out and you feel like, okay, I earned my respect. Now they fear me. But I remember I did, just that month that I did there, coming home, my parents picking me up. But the person that went to see me during that time was my mother. She got a ride somehow there. She took the bus. My brothers took her. On Sundays, she would go to visit me, you know, and she never scolded me. She never put me down. She just loved me, you know. So the day that I was released, I went home, and who was waiting there? The homies. And they gave me that praise, that welcome. And they were asking me, how was it in there? Because I was the first one out of that age group to go to the halls. So I felt like I had been elevated to a different status now.
That's crazy, and it validates you even more. And now you're in your head, you're like, this justifies it while I'm doing it.
Right.
And
Yes, right. So I'm there. I'm sharing the stories that I get, you know. So I feel like I have more experience now. The way I even sit, the way I cross my legs, my language has changed, my demeanor has changed. But what really did it that day is that a few hours later, one of the older homies who never really acknowledged me, wanted to hang around with me, he gets there and he says, you know what, let's go. So I'm like, what? The older homie wants a kid with me? Yeah. So I remember I threw on my trench coat, my bandana, and that's the first time that I actually started to carry a weapon. It was an axe. I got this axe, I put it in my trench coat, and we rode. And now I felt like I had to even prove myself to him, because he was like one of the main guys, and he was already, you know, packing and doing all these things, and so I wanted to be with him. And from that moment on, I started to be violent with weapons, and of course, you know, go to more rival gangs and promote this neighborhood that I belong to.
Question: when you grabbed that weapon, were you thinking, I'm grabbing this weapon for safety, or I'm grabbing this weapon to have a weapon, just rep, and to show that I have something?
I think it was both, you know, because I knew that now I was going to be with the big boys, you know, and I needed that extra protection. But I also knew that by being more violent, I would have more people fear me.
more praise.
And my reputation will grow.
So you had the purpose to be more violent.
Yes.
You knew that at the end of the day,
Yes.
this is what I'm gonna do.
Yes.
So this was like at 16, right?
This was already 16.
16. You were full blown.
Yes, that's it. I'm affiliated now. That, you know, I'm making myself known. I want everybody to know who I am. I want them to fear me. I want the girls to love me. I want the homies to respect me. Yes, and a few months later, I remember picked up a weapon, and that was different, you know.
Like
So
a
now
gun,
I
right?
went like
Once
a gun.
you get a gun,
Yes.
it just feels like you're fucking Superman.
Yeah.
And it
yeah.
instills a different
Yeah.
mentality in you. Right?
How did that come about? Like you actually getting the gun?
The homies had it. The homies had it, and I felt okay. You know what? You know, this is again sense of power, and I got it, and man, it felt good. The first time that I shot somebody, just the fear in him, you know, running for me, made me feel even more powerful. And I didn't realize at the time that I was creating so much enemies. After that happened, my brother and I looked alike, so they would confuse us. They would think that he was the one, and of course, they began to really want to target us, you know, to hunt us. And it wasn't until I would say maybe a few months later, after the first time that I got out of juvenile hall, that our house was shot at because they couldn't find us in the street. So they went to our house. And I remember waking up to my mother crying. And it wasn't just a cry, it was a horrible cry of sobbing that I felt that she was dying. And I remember jumping up out of my bed about maybe 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and my brother too, and going to the kitchen and hearing her right there just terrified, and looking in the front and seeing my brother and my dad in the front and hearing gunshots. And I go over there and I see 3 individuals outside shooting at our house. And at that moment, my parents decided, you know what? My mom said, I love this house, but I love you guys more. I love my children more. So they decided to move. But I felt so connected to my barrio that I said, you know what? My barrio can't function without me. They need me here. I'm not going nowhere. So the day that they moved, I remember it was a Friday. I left. I left the house. I came back that day, didn't, you know, had a little blanket, little pillow, slept the night. The next day, we went gangbanging. We ended up stabbing somebody. The next day, Sunday, they come back. They retaliate.
Same house?
Not to the house. Now I was in the street.
Got you.
They went looking for
They
you
were
guys.
looking for me. I was with one of the homies. We were driving a bike, and they came up on us. And as soon as I saw the barrel come out of the car, I knew that they were going to shoot. And I dove down to the ground, and before I even hit the ground, I felt my whole arm get sprayed, and it was buckshots from a shotgun. And I felt my whole arm just kind of go numb and burning. And I got up and started running, but they just sped off. They didn't get off the car. They just sped off. And I remember going to the hospital, got treated. But that night in the hospital, my mom goes to visit me. And I'm laying there right there, just angry, upset, pissed, you know, thinking about plotting, what am I going to do to these guys?
Yeah.
And my mom gets there and she looks down on me, doesn't say a word, but just her face says it all. Like, what happened? I moved out of that house to prevent this from happening.
Right.
But I was so full of hatred and resentment and vengeance that I'm over here like, I don't care what you think. I spent the night there. The next day, Monday, my girl went to visit me. We had a good little visit in the morning. But that night, the homies came. I heard them. They're yelling in the hallway.
In the hospital.
In the
Yes,
hospital, right?
but they
Oh,
come
shit.
in. They come to visit me in the hospital, my room. Man, this is the most praise and recognition that I've ever received. I felt like a soldier gone to war, been shot, come back, and receive a medal of honor. I felt that I had proved the highest honor
Yeah.
of taking a bullet for the barrio and surviving. So not only do I feel like powerful, I feel invincible. You know, I've been shot and I survived, and now no one could hurt me. So I went. The next day, my brothers picked me up. My brother tells me, "Go to my aunt's. I'll pick you up there." I go to my aunt's. I call the homies. They go pick me up. We go. We get in trouble. We get into a fight with the rival gang. We get arrested. I go to juvenile hall. I don't have no number. I just moved, right, to another county. So I'm in juvenile hall again. That Sunday, guess who goes visits me?
Moms again.
My mom.
Yeah.
My mom is there.
Always in it. She's on your team.
Sad, disappointed, but she's there, loving me. You know about how am I doing, and I eventually transfer from L.A. County to a different county, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna try to do it for my mother because I saw how much it hurt her once the judge said, you know what, we're gonna release him after 2 months.
Yeah.
How she started to cry.
What started to cry? Why? Because she knew that you were gonna come out and do the same
Yes.
shit.
No,
Okay.
crying because I was being released.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
She would have hope to
Yeah.
keep you there. At least she knows you're
Yes,
safe there and you're not in the
but
street.
she was happy that I was coming home, right? Because a part of her did want me to start changing. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna give it a shot. This was around May. So I said, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. So I got out. I got enrolled to a continuation school. I got a part-time job. Still affiliated, still claiming the neighborhood, but wasn't going to the neighborhood. I decided, you know what? I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna not go over there because I know what's gonna happen when I go over there.
Right.
So I did that for 6 months. But one day in December 13th, just like an addict who thinks that just because he's been sober for a week or a month or a year, that he could take one drink and he'll be okay. I thought that I would be okay by going one day to the neighborhood.
How old were you at this time?
I was 17.
Okay.
17 years old. I go there, dressed up, excited. Man, the hugs, the praise, the attention, the music, being in the barrio brought back all these feelings, the adrenaline, the power, the acceptance.
Yeah.
And I got caught up. The girls come over, we start partying, we're dancing, a little bit of drinking. I was never a drinker. I was never a smoker. I experimented it, but I saw too much people be killed or shot because they were intoxicated and they were in their five senses, and I didn't want to be one of those victims.
Damn. So you kept the G, like you kept it straight.
I was trying to be sober, and ready, prepared. And that day, I felt that okay, I got excited. I wanted to have sex. I told the homies, you know what, let's go, let's get these girls, let's get out of here. I told my brother, hey, give me the gun. Again, because I was really a coward. And the gun made me feel powerful.
Yeah.
So they're like, Sil, I'm not going to give you the gun. So I got upset because I was a hot-tempered kid, stubborn, and I left. I walked out of the neighborhood. I walked out of the party. And they came up the car. They said, come on, jump in. We're going to, talk to you. And I jump in, and we're driving.
And this is something where you couldn't say no, right?
Couldn't say no. What do you mean?
Jumping in, like, we're going to talk to you.
Yeah, I could have, and I did at first. But they kind of, come on, get in. So I got in, and we ended up going down a one-way street in a rival territory who happened to be having a party at that time. And I ride like a knucklehead, give me the gun, let me get out, shoot these guys. And my brother didn't let me, but he did. He got out. Well, he didn't get out, but from the car, saved the neighborhood and shot. But what we didn't realize is that they too were packing, and they were packing high caliber weapons. All I remember is driving away and turning around and seeing somebody duck, get on their knees, and point. And before I even hit the back seat of the car, you hear gun bullets everywhere in the car, around us. And my brother, as a good of a driver he was, he yells out, "I've been shot. I'm hit." And we start hitting other cars. And then I feel a hot burning sensation on my leg. And I know that feeling. So I yell, I'm hit. And we crash. And I hear the sounds of footsteps. I hear them saying, we got him. But I froze. I couldn't move. And I remember thinking, my mother's going to receive a phone call that 3 of her children had just been murdered.
So it was all three of you, all three
We were
brothers
on the
in one car?
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God, that's a mother's worst nightmare.
Yes,
for real.
exactly. But I couldn't move. I froze.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I felt the car go in reverse. We picked up, they pressed the gas pedal. We were going forward. They kept shooting. And when we turned the boulevard, we were going so fast that on the curve, we flipped over and landed on the other side of the street. And we landed on all 4 tires. I immediately jumped up. My brother Tony got out, but Teodoro didn't. And as I got closer to him, I saw blood and part of his brains coming out of his head. And I just went into shock. And my brother told me, "Sil, get the gun and just get out of here." And I got the gun, I ran. I must have ran like about a mile. I was jumping these huge fences, walls. I was just, I was terrified. I was running for my life. And it wasn't until I stopped and realized that I had been shot. I felt like water coming down my leg, and I realized, okay, I've been shot too. But I remember going to the hospital, getting taken care of about at maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, and then dreading going home to face my mother.
Right.
I didn't have the nerve to tell her what just happened. But I ended up walking in there with crutches, and the first person that I saw was my mom. And mothers have this intuition. They know when something went wrong. She ends up right away yelling, crying, "Tus hermanos, tus hermanos." I couldn't tell her. I hung my head down. I walked upstairs, and I told my little brother, who was awake, what happened. And I went to sleep, hoping that when I woke up, all this would have been a nightmare. I woke up at 10 o'clock that morning. And that morning, at that time, that's the time that my brother officially passed away. The cops apparently came while I was asleep, told my parents. They all went to the hospital. And it wasn't until a day later that I went to see my brother in the hospital. He was shot in the back of the head, came out through his mouth, through his jaw, and the other one on the neck. So he couldn't talk. His jaw was shut. But he wrote us and he told us that he couldn't see. Once he got shot, he couldn't see. That's why we crashed. But my brother, rest in peace, put him aside, took the steering wheel over, and he drove. And in the process, they shot him in the head. It was a ricochet. So my brother literally gave his life to save us. And you would think that hearing this, that would be a sign for me to tell myself, you know what, I gotta walk away. I gotta care for my family who was broken, who was in need. And I didn't. I did the opposite. All that did was create more hatred, more vengeance. I wanted blood. I wanted them to suffer. But it was for 2 selfish reasons. And the first reason was because I didn't want to lose my reputation. What are they gonna say if I don't retaliate? That reputation that I worked so hard, that for the first time, I felt like I was somebody in this world, that people actually liked me and feared me and respected me. I wasn't ready to let go of that. And the second reason was because I felt responsible for his death. I felt guilt. And I felt that if I retaliated and sought vengeance, that I would be redeemed, that I would feel closure and peace and comfort. And I decided that I'm gonna go on vengeance. I went on a shooting spree for 5 months, shooting all my rivals, anybody that I came across, using people. I started going to school. I stopped going to work. I would call in sick. I would have my friends call in that I wasn't gonna go. Started being less at the house. But I remember looking down at the casket on my brother when he was being murdered, when he was being buried, and just thinking like, I want blood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I went after for.
Mm-hmm.
I would use girls to come pick me up, to drive me to LA. And on one day, in May, I walked up to 3 individuals, completely innocent people, were having a good time by themselves. I preyed on them. I saw them get to this park with the intention of murdering 3 of them. And I walked up to them. I pretended that I came looking for weed, just to have them, feel comfortable. And when I got close enough to them, I took out my weapon and I shot one, the first one. And I remember him looking at me, like, real peacefully, like, what are you doing? I have done nothing to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't matter. I shot him. And I knew that as soon as he hit the floor, I knew he was dead. And I turned the gun and I shot his brother twice. And I ran after their friend and shot him twice. And I was such a coward that I fled. I knew the cops were looking for me, and I fled the country. I was gone for about 2.5 years. I came back. I felt, you know what? It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Time has passed. I'm gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got a job.
Out
went
there
to
in
school.
Mexico?
No, I'm back here in the States now.
You're back here after
Yes.
2 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So when I was in Mexico, that's the first time actually that I actually was away from my family as a teenager.
What did mom say, like, that when you were going to Mexico, like all that?
And I didn't even. My brother told her. I didn't even have the guts to tell her either.
So you just left.
I just left.
Nobody.
And of course, they're thinking they're protecting me, right?
Right.
So they're okay with it. After a few months, she goes to visit me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to see that it's taking its toll on her. She's lost a son already.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's losing a son that's away to a different country because now he destroyed another family.
Yeah.
Our oldest brother got addicted to rock cocaine at that time and drinking.
Real quick, did he end up having any like residual effects from being shot? You said he
Yes.
got shot in the neck,
Yes.
nerves,
So
and
he
couldn't see.
lost his earring, his hear from one of his ear. He couldn't hear, right? And his way of coping with our loss was he started being more into drugs and alcohol. My oldest sister got more into work and food. My parents more into their job. They became more workaholics. My younger brother isolated himself even more so, and then he started hanging around with the fellas. So everybody was impacted in different ways.
Yeah.
My little sister, she was just only 7 years old. She obviously, was traumatized as well. But everybody, I remember my grandma, it was so hurtful for her that she couldn't even attend the funeral. It was too much. But we all were coping with it in different ways. I just decided that violence was my outlet.
Yeah.
And being in Mexico, away from everybody, of course, I missed my house. I missed opening the refrigerator. I missed, sleeping in my own bed. I missed the city life. But it still didn't really hit me hard until years later. I came back to the States. I was doing well. I bought my first car. I had a little money in the bank. But you know what? Everything you do catches up to you.
Yeah.
100%.
I still went.
100%.
I was still going to the neighborhood. Though I wasn't gang banging, I was still going to the neighborhood with the homies, taking my little nephew, which is my little brother, my brother, rest in peace, his son, taking him over there. and not even thinking.
What though? Like to get active and
No,
get him
no,
into the game?
no.
Or?
Just taking him around the neighborhood.
Like
right?
you're just driving, like, hey, we're gonna stop by real quick.
Yeah, we would go
type
visit one of the
deal.
homies,
Wow.
right? But he would see us. He would see us
That's what I'm
drinking.
saying, yeah.
He would see him cussing. He would see them, you know, getting high. He would see them, you know, dressing like cholos. So I didn't realize it, but I was already influenced by little nephew into shaping him into follow in my footsteps. So it wasn't until 92 December again, right? This month is very difficult for my family because that's when my brother was murdered, and then that's also when they end up arresting me. So I get arrested.
Real quick, when you came back, did you have any idea that they were on you? I'm assuming you already knew they were on you.
Yes, I did. I did. I knew there was a warrant filed for my arrest.
Okay.
I didn't care. You know, I felt, okay, if they arrest me, you know, I'm going to get out. That's how naive I was.
How long did you last out here before they pulled you over?
About a year and a half.
Out here and out, and
Yes.
with that type of warrant out?
Yeah.
This was in
That's-
the
that's
90s, though,
interesting.
huh? That's probably
Yes.
nowadays with the fucking cameras
Yeah,
and
you
apps
get
and phones.
it happens
that's not
within
happening.
a week.
Man, that is intense.
So you're at the same time while you're out in Mexico too. Your family's going through, like you mentioned, these things are impacting, but they're also going through doors being broken down probably as well.
Yeah. So police are stopping them, running background checks, harassing them. You know, yes. You know,
They were born here or had papers and everything? Because, you know, that's another issue for Raza is that
Yeah.
parents are undocumented and the kids are fucking up. Now you put
Exactly.
them on the spotlight and
Exactly.
they have to, you know.
Yes.
part.
So I was causing so much problems to them. I was impacting their lives without even being present no more. You know, they were suffering the aftermath of my bad choices and decisions and actions, and I was over there like in Acapulco. You know, I should be the one that should have been enduring those things, and they were the ones that would have to left and pick up the pieces. You know, so coming back, they were fearful. They weren't in agreement for me being back here, but like I was used to doing what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, I was having my way. So when I got arrested, I remember still thinking that I was going to get away with it. Unfortunately, it wasn't like that. I got arrested, went to trial, lasted 2 weeks. It finished on Friday. On Monday, the jury came back in with the guilty verdict. So at that time, if you were sentenced to life, you were going to do life. This was the early 90s. There was a lot of violence, a lot of gang violence at that time. Laws were very severe. So we knew what we were expecting to. So they still decided, being that I was a juvenile at the time that I committed this crime, I went back to juvenile hall. I went through the whole process. I went to Norwalk reception. They found me not suitable, of course, which I expected. Went back to the county. And in December again, December the 1st, I appeared before the judge. And I remember standing there, right? And it's like you see on TV. The jury stands up, we the verdict, find, you know, so-and-so guilty of first degree. As soon as it said guilty, I felt my whole world just started coming because I knew what that meant. And I remember the only one that was there was my younger brother because he's the only one that I told of that day. I didn't want my mom to be present. I didn't want her to have to hear that sentence.
So told her in the sense that, what didn't she know about it? Like you told
About
your
how
little
long
brother?
I was gonna be sentenced.
Oh, so they didn't. So they didn't know the system like that.
Exactly.
Right? Like, hey, my
Yes.
son's murdered.
Yes.
You never put those pieces like attempted
No.
murder carries life.
Yes,
you know, and
exactly.
Things like that. Okay,
exactly.
they had no idea what.
No, they knew it was severe,
Man.
but they didn't know the actual
Right.
sentence. So I didn't tell them. So my brother was there, but I remember turning around and pretending that I was okay. You know, like, I got this, bro. I'm good. But I wasn't. I was broken. I went back to the county. I got high. And like I said, I'm not really a smoker, but I needed to escape. I needed to numb that pain, that feeling. And this was December. In February, I ended up going to, no, was it February? I think it was, February. February, I went to reception. I get to reception, Delano. So that's just like they're preparing you to what prison they're going to send you to. So I go there, and I remember being there. You're in a cell. You're either by yourself or with someone else. And I remember getting a letter from my older brother. And he tells me, Sil, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what advice to give you. I've never been to prison. All I could say to ask yourself is, what brought you there? And I told myself, what brought me here? I started to think about that. And I said, well, what brought me here is feeling that I was worthless. What brought me here was wanting to impress other people. What brought me here is wanting to have this reputation that I'm a tough guy. What brought me here is not liking who I really am, being embarrassed of Silvestre. That's what brought me here. So that was the seed that was started to get planted. But I knew that prison was a whole different thing. You know, I heard stories. You know, you got races now. You either, you're with one. There's no street gangs. So I go in there, and I'm scared. I'm confused. I'm frightened. I'm nervous.
Real quick, what was the official verdict that they gave you?
Okay. Thank you. I left that out. So the judge, I was found guilty of first-degree murder and 2 attempted murders. So they sentenced me to 33 years to life for the first degree and 2 life sentences for each attempted murder.
Holy crap.
Consecutive. Wow. So my initial board date wasn't going to be into 2029. And that's just like the possibility of getting out.
Yeah.
But for me, that was an eternity. I remember.
I mean, it really is just in general. 20, 30 years, like,
Right. Yeah. I remember falling into like a depression right after that.
Yeah.
Sleeping more, getting high,
The
just not
numbing.
having, to numb it.
Yeah.
One of the first things I learned in prison was to make pruno, to make this alcohol. And once I got drunk and I listened to my corridos, I escaped. I was in Mexico peacefully over there. But it wasn't until the next day that I woke up that it was reality. I still had 3 life sentences. I felt that I had lost everything. I felt I had lost my family, material things, my car, the money, my job. And it was hard. But I still was so selfish that I wasn't even thinking about what I put my victims through.
Yeah.
It was just about me. And I was blaming everybody. I was blaming the judge, the jury, the victims, my father, the community, my peers, everybody. I went to reception in February. I got to state prison in April. And no letters, no cards. I tried to call the homies, blocked, or they didn't answer. So I started to think, where's everybody at? Where is my barrio where I need them the most?
That part.
I felt abandoned. I felt betrayed. I felt deceived. The only ones that were there to visit me, to send me packages, to send me money, letters, cards, my family. My mom, my dad, my sisters, my brothers, my nieces and nephews. I remember the hardest part was my nephews asking me, Sil, why are you here? And when are you coming home? And I couldn't answer them. I couldn't tell them that I was here because I took a human life. And I couldn't tell them that I could probably never come home. My mother and my grandmother were very faithful in the faith. They would tell me, Mijo, pray to God, ask him to get you out one day, believe that he will. And I started to. From that moment on, I would pray every day. And there was that little mustard seed of faith that one day would come out. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know how old I'm going to be, but I'm going to be out. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to take care of myself. But that, of course, didn't really sink in until about 2 years later after I got sent to High Desert. High Desert was a new level 180 that just opened.
That was your first prison?
That was my first
And that's
180
a hard
prison.
for somebody.
It just
that's
opened.
Going in.
So we were constantly on lockdowns.
You went in at what level? Like
at
It's level 4.
level
Level
4,
four, right?
180.
So the location itself is all level 4 based.
Yeah, and then not only that, high desert is up there in the middle of nowhere, and
Susanville.
it's cold and it's
Snowing.
snowing.
You're just away from everybody. And you know what? For the first time, I start feeling really separated from my family. We weren't able to make phone calls because we were locked down.
really?
So I couldn't call them to see how they were doing. I wasn't able to write them as often, or their letters I wasn't receiving them too often. So now I'm worrying about them, right? Like, how are they doing? And then it dawns on me one day, is this how my mother felt when I would leave the house for days or weeks
Yeah.
and not even call her and tell her, Mom, estoy bien? This is what I put my mom through? Now I'm starting to feel it. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. This is what my mother endured with all 4 of us.
Yeah.
And I start seeing that not only do I feel that my friends, my brothers have abandoned me, but I also start feeling like I realize that, wait a minute, isn't that what I did to my family? When I chose my barrio, when I would leave them on holidays or on the weekends or in the middle of the night and go with the homies to a party or go gangbanging, didn't I do that? So I was guilty of abandoning and neglecting my family. I betrayed them because they didn't raise me to go and pick up a gun and shoot people. There was domestic violence, yes. There was abuse, physical and verbal, yes. But they didn't teach me to be a cholo, to pick up a weapon, to shoot people, to drive
Right.
or ride on walls, or to steal, to break the law. I decided to do that. But you know what the turning point was, gentlemen? It wasn't until I was in High Desert, locked down in 97, that I received a letter from my mother. And she tells me that my little nephew, this same little kid, Ernie,
The one that you took
Ernie,
to the neighborhood.
Ernesto,
Yeah.
that I took to the neighborhood, started dressed like cholos. That devastated me. And I started to think, right, I don't want him to follow in my footsteps. I don't want him to follow his dad and be murdered. So I sat down and I wrote him a letter, and he wrote me back, right? And I still have this letter, and I want to read it to you guys.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
please.
Yeah. So this is a letter from you to your nephew.
This is a letter that he wrote me back
As a response
as a
of your
response to my
response.
letter,
Gotcha.
right? When I told him, Ernie, I don't want you to come to prison like me. I don't want you to be murdered like your father.
And to kind of touch before, the letter that you received from your mom, all she said was he started dressing like a gangster.
Yes.
She never said anything else. That's it. But you already knew from that day
that
on.
means.
That's
I know what that could lead to. And he was 10 years old, right? He's
Wow,
10 years
so
old,
he's
so
so
he was
young.
even younger than I was.
yeah.
Right? So this is a letter that he wrote. He responded to me. He was 10 years old in 97. He tells me, "Hi, Silvestre. I love you. And I miss you a lot. When are you coming home with us? I am going into school. I am never going to be a cholo again ever in my life. When I grow up, I would try to remember what I read, and I hope that you can come home soon. P.S. I do know a little bit of Spanish. Love Ernesto, because I was always tease him about learning Spanish, you know. But that really brought a lot of comfort to me hearing that. But I knew that if I was going to begin preaching to him, that I had to practice what I was telling him.
Right.
So that's when I started to dissociate myself, and I started to say, you know what, I need to better myself in here. I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but I'm going to make the best of it. I started going to school, and I had learned to read in juvenile hall. But now I started to practice more, because that's a lot of time you have in your cell to read. And I went back to school. I started to study for my GED. And you know what? I was surprised because within a year, I took my GED and I passed it. And it wasn't that difficult, but I did. I made an effort to study. I worked hard.
That part,
I sacrificed.
And congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man.
And it was a good feeling, and it motivated me, and it showed me, you know what? You're not stupid. You are capable of learning. You are capable of achieving what you want. You just have to work hard at it and believe in yourself and ask for help. And I started to, my older sister, Yolanda, beautiful lady, very intelligent, always would encourage me, Sil, you're smart, you could go to school, always emphasizing education. And I said, you know what, this is not enough. Education is not enough. I'm going to start going into self-help groups, you know. I knew that I had an anger problem. I knew that, you know, domestic violence, you know, was in our home. I started to find out exactly what it was that really brought me to prison. To do that, I had to go back to my childhood. And by attending these groups, right, it started to open my mind. I started to make the connections. We would have a group called Victims Awareness, where victims of crimes would come to prison and they would share the impact that crime had on them, of them losing a son to gang violence or being abused by their husbands. And I started to hear to these stories. And it really cut me because I felt what exactly my actions and my behavior had done to another human being. I started to place myself in another person's shoes. I started to develop empathy for people.
It's a big one.
And I didn't know that before. Right. Everything I was just doing, I was inflicting suffering and pain. But now that things were happening to me, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Another turning point was my son, who I didn't mention. I brought into this world at the age of 16. And again, I abandoned him and his mother for my gang. Now I had an opportunity to ask for forgiveness, right? Because now I started to feel remorse. I start feeling guilty now. I start feeling remorse. I start feeling regret. All these things that I didn't feel before, I'm starting to feel them. So now I want to ask for forgiveness to people that I hurt. And my son's grandma was the first one that I wanted to ask for forgiveness. And she tells me, I had a chance to talk from the phone, and she tells me, you know what? I forgive you and I love you. And I just, what? After what I've done, you love me? And she goes, I admit, when you first done that to my family, you disgraced us. I hated you. But now I've learned to forgive you and to love you. That really motivated me to also start forgiving other people for their wrongs against me.
Yeah.
So all this was just like a learning process, you know, going to AVP, anger. Man, I forgot what AVP stands for, man, right now. But it, Alternatives to Violence Project. So there's exercises that we do that they're fun, they're engaging, but they also help you to recognize your anger and to develop coping skills and to find out how you can resolve conflict. And attending church programs, I started going back to church, and for the first time, I heard a homily at church from the priest, and I understood it. It spoke to me because now my heart started to be open. I started to slowly get rid of those resentments, that anger, that rage, that vengeance, because I started to develop empathy for people. I started to understand their pain, their hurt, and I was more receptive to it, to change. And I knew that if I wanted to come home and if I wanted God to really forgive me, I had to start forgiving too.
Right.
You know, even the person that murdered my brother. And I learned to do that. And it was hard, but I learned to do it because how could I ask God for forgiveness if I wasn't to forgive either?
Right.
I kept my victim's family always in my thoughts, always in my prayers, understanding now that they too had suffered, that they too were suffering just like my mom was suffering, that they too were missing that young Jose in their lives, that little boy who was only 15 years old, who wasn't even a cholo, who was just there with his big brother. And I robbed him and took away his life, his future, all his dreams and aspirations that he had. I took him in 1 second. And that wasn't my right to do. I cannot bring him back, but if I can do something to help save other people so they don't have to suffer that, so mothers don't have to lose loved ones, so sisters don't have to lose brothers to prison or to death, I made a vow that I would dedicate the rest of my life to making amends. Step 9, you know, if you guys are familiar with AANA or CGA, you know, it's making amends to people when you have the opportunity to do so, and that's what I've been doing. My brother would go visit me. My younger brother would go visit me, and he's been in this field of restoration and healing circles. So he would tell me about him going to juvenile hall, him going to detention centers, him going to schools and talking to the youth, and you know, loving them and validating them and giving him his attention.
Literally, what you're getting, he's giving.
Exactly, right? So I'm like, bro, I can't wait to do that with you. I want to do that with you. But yet I'm still in prison, right? But I'm realizing also that in prison, there's a lot of hypocrisy. There's a lot of deception, a lot of betrayal. People that you think are your friends are not your friends.
I'm glad you said that because that's what I wanted to ask. Like, there's this big battles, mental health battle that you're fighting. You're surviving mentally, but when it comes to physically surviving physically, because it's a whole different game in prison. How are you doing that when you have so much on your mind? How are you staying safe and keeping yourself on top? What challenges did you have?
Just riots, man. Just, you know, a lot of hatred, stabbing, fighting, always being on your guard. You know, it's stressful. It's nerve-wracking. You know, you can't sleep well, you can't eat well, and then you can't even share with other people because you're afraid of what they're gonna think of you. You know, you're a chump, you're weak, and they're probably thinking the same thing. But we just have to pretend and just kind of go along with it.
Right.
You know, out of fear again, right? But I got to see that there is a lot of good people in there, but they too have been traumatized. They too have experienced violence, verbal violence, sexual abuse, abandonment, neglect, loss. And we're here now. We made those crucial decisions to resort to violence, and we're here in prison now, and we're trying to survive, but there's choices, and each one has that choice to make. And I decided, you know what? I'm gonna make a choice now to be reunited with my family. That's the choice that I'm gonna make. I'm gonna choose to be in these programs to find out exactly what it is that brought Silvestre to prison and try to repair that and heal from that. Because when I come home, I want to be a different person. I want to do things differently. I want to give back and restore my family, and I want to rebuild my communities and make them safe, and let every young person know that they are precious, that they are valuable, that they are worthy, that they are smart, that they are courageous. They don't have to pick up a gun. They don't have to write their name on the wall or promote a gang or be embarrassed to say their name or to say that they're sensitive, that they're afraid, that they need help, that they can't read. No, we all have gifts. I found out my gifts. I found out that I am sensitive And that's a strength. I found out that I'm friendly, that I'm encouraging, that I'm kind, that I'm generous, that I'm assertive. Those are strengths. But I would just apply them in the wrong direction. Yep. And I just learned to redirect them to something positive, something noble, something worthy. So I'm in there, I'm dissociating myself, and it's hard. But I'm able to drop from a level 4 180 to a level 4 270 to a level 3. For the first time, I'm able to go out to the yard at night, and I look up, and I'm able to see the stars. I'm able to see the rain come down, feel the breeze, things that I took for granted. I'm able to get canned foods. I'm able to eat a little more decent. I have a little more freedom. I'm able to go out in the evenings. Those are luxuries that I took for granted for so many years. And it felt good to have them. But I'm starting to see my family, my family's aging, health conditions. They're struggling, but yet they're there. They're attentive.
Yeah.
Going to visit me. One of the things that the homies didn't tell me about when I was younger about prison is, besides the riots, the trauma that you endure to experience that, but they didn't tell me about the loss that I was going to suffer when a family member died.
Yeah.
One of the family members that I first lost that hurt me the most was losing my grandma, Mama Tela, in 2007. Receiving a phone call from my counselor to report back to the building. And we know what that means. When the counselor calls you to the building, it's either because you're having an annual review or there's been some bad news. And if it's not your annual review, most likely it's going to be the bad news. So I call home. My sister tells me that my grandma passed away. She was 94.
Wow.
My grandma endured trauma from her childhood. Losing her parents, her little brother, and then later my grandfather, and then later her son, her daughter, and then of course with our generation. And she would go visit me, and my grandma was very wise, very strong, and my grandma would always tell me, hijo. She would tell me in Spanish. She would say, hijo, no dejes que tu coraje te domine. Tú domina tu coraje. Don't allow your anger to dominate you. You dominate your anger. And I never understood what those words meant until I sat down and I started to write her a letter. Because when you have life, they don't let you go out for a funeral, because you're a risk. So I don't care how much money I would have had, I never would have been allowed to go to her funeral. So I had to say my goodbyes through a letter.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wrote her a letter for 3 days. Until the last day that I finished it, I heard her words tell me those things. And I started to cry. I cried. But after I cried, I felt a sense of peace. I felt like my grandma was with me. And I was able to let her know that I didn't understand then, but now I understand. She was trying to protect me all those years. She was trying to let me know, hey, wake up, because your anger is going to get you in trouble. And looking back on it, that was the cause of it. I was a hot-tempered little kid like the Hulk. I would get angry and I would blow up and want to just, act out violently.
Yeah.
And she was telling me to calm down, relax, think about it. And I said, I'm going to do that, Grandma. I'm going to do that. So I knew that these groups were important to me, attending them, learning how to respond, not to react. How to really think about the consequences and think about what's being said and say, okay, what's going on here? Let's resolve this in a peaceful manner. Let's talk about it. I feel this way. How do you feel? We don't have to act out violently. Anybody could act out violently. That's not going to solve it. It's going to make matters worse. So I started to learn those coping skills. I learned to communicate. I learned sometimes that even my tone, because if you guys notice by now, I have a high tone, but it becomes higher when I'm angry or I'm excited. And that could be a trigger for people.
Yeah.
It's a trigger for me. when my father, when I was younger, he would yell at me. To this day, when people yell at me, or when I hear people yelling, that little boy comes out like, it's alert.
Yeah.
But I find myself that I'm that same person too. I have the tendency to do that. So I have to be cautious that I could be a trigger for other people. So I learned all these things. I learned about the signs too that your body tells you about anger. You know, my palms get sweaty, my heart begins to beat. You know, I feel like a surge of blood go from my head to from my toes to my head. Those are signs that my body tells me. So I learned that, okay, Silvestre, calm down. If that means counting to 10, if that means, you know what, give me a second, let me walk off, I'll come back. If that means taking some deep breaths, exhaling, all coping skills that help me, okay, what am I going to do? Let's try to resolve this.
Yeah.
So all these groups were very helpful. But it was difficult because I started to see that I wasn't the only one that was incarcerated. My family was enduring everything that I was.
Yep.
They were suffering.
Yep.
They were aging. Every time that I was on lockdown, they were worrying, what's going to happen to him? Is he doing? Is he going to be stabbed? Is he going to be hurt? Is he going to go to the hole? Am I going to see him? What's going to happen to him? Is he eating? Does he have enough clothes to wear?
Day by day.
Day by day, bro. And it was horrible. I never realized how much this really affects people that love you, people that care about you. They would go visit me and we would have a good time, we would eat, but the hardest part would be leaving. You know, my mother would tell me, I wish I could just make you into a small person and put you in my purse and walk out with you. And she wasn't able to do that, you know? But we enjoyed that moment, and they were proud to see that I was beginning to change my mentality, my values, my beliefs. After going to after getting my GED, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go to high school. I'm gonna go for my high school diploma. I studied for that, and I passed that as well. The proudest moment of my life was in 2007 when my parents went to my graduation ceremony, and we're right there in front.
That's
you know?
awesome, yeah.
And I was the valedictorian. I was nominated for the valedictorian, and I gave a talk, cried like a baby, but I honored my sister, who was the one that really encouraged me and believed in me when I didn't believe in myself.
Yeah.
And I thanked my parents, but I saw how proud they were of me. They had never been proud of me before. They had no reason to be proud of me. I was getting into trouble, but they were proud of me, and that motivated me. And then my son, he had just graduated from USC in 2 years later. What was it? 2010. He graduated from USC.
Wow,
so that
congratulations.
encouraged me. You know what? High school's not enough. If my son did it, I could go on to college too.
Yeah.
So I went on for my AA, and I thank God I earned that in 2015, right?
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And
Quick question. You kept in touch with your son throughout this whole thing?
no, his mother would visit me during relationships, right? Families, they'll endure it, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes, wives, girlfriends, even though they may love you, it's just too painful. It's too difficult. There's so much involved when you're with someone that's incarcerated, going to visit him, the packages, the letters. It takes a lot of their time, their effort, where maybe they have siblings, maybe they have kids, maybe they have other responsibilities. It just drains them. And sometimes it's just too unbearable that relationships, they separate, they break off.
Yeah.
And it was just too hard for my son's mother. It was too hard for her, so we separated. But I was able, through my sister-in-law, she would keep me informed on his
So you
developments.
get those updates.
I would,
Okay.
yeah. So I was able to learn about him.
What'd you think when you found out your son went to USC?
Man, I was like, wow.
USC is a large
Yeah.
school. Like, that's
Yes.
very successful. That's
yes,
great.
Yes, yeah. I'm very proud of him. You know what? But I wouldn't have been able to give him that opportunity. At 16, active, still very immature, irresponsible. He wouldn't have had that. I'm thankful for the man that raised him, that was there. He's the real dad. He deserves that title.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. So I'm just
That's
grateful.
mature to be able to say that. That's so mature.
Yeah.
I'm not
That's the
myself. I'm not a
reality,
father, but like even as like seeing other fathers, it's so hard to be able to say something like that because you wanted to be there. But I honestly thank you for saying that like that because that just brought like a lot of thoughts to my head and the maturity that you have,
Yeah.
especially as a father yourself. You're a great father because you accepted that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So at what stage during your, so you did 26 years total. At what point did it become like a reality that you might be coming home?
Okay. So I'm in Chuckawalla, 2000. I had just dropped down.
That's level 2,
What's it
I
called?
think, right?
Chuckawalla. They call it Chucky's house.
Chuckawalla. Interesting.
I got there in 2012 because the point system changed.
Okay,
They decided that close custodies now were gonna be allowed to go to level 3s, right? I'm sorry, to level 2s.
Secured level 2s and all
Secure
that,
level
yeah.
2s, yeah. So I get there, right? I had to leave my cell, the comfort of my cell, where I had, my hot pot, my TV, my radio, clothes, food. Now I have to go into a dorm living, right? Where I share now a bunk with another person, but it's an open dorm. I don't have all the luxuries. But you know what? I understood that for me to go into to society once again, I have to start to learning to adapt, to be around more people.
Yeah.
So I went there 2012, and I remember that year, one of my friends at church, because I'm still going to church, comes up and tells me, hey, there's a Senate bill that is in the process of going through the channels right now. It's Senate Bill 260, which states if you committed a crime under the age of 18, you will be eligible for parole or to go to the front of the board after serving 25 years. That was like, wow, this is it. Thank you, God. This is what, this was I didn't know how, I didn't know when, I didn't know where, but this was it. This was my ticket or my opportunity. So sure enough, man, I was on that bill. I was, inquiring about it. I was seeing it go through the stages. And sure enough, it passed. And I was letting my family know it had passed. It took effect 2013. At that time, I was I had 21 years in. So I knew that I was already, about another 3 years, I was going to have my first opportunity. So the good thing is that I was already attending self-help groups. I was already in education. I was already working. I was working as a clerk in education as a tutor.
Yeah.
Because now I knew that there was other men that they didn't know how to read. They had also insecurities. They had a low self-esteem. They had been told that as a kid that maybe that they were stupid or they believed that they were. I'm trying to tell them, no, man, come on, look it. You can read. You can learn. You can achieve. You can earn this diploma. You can make your family proud. Your children, they could follow you. You could motivate them. So that was also my way of giving back. And so it passed, right? So now it just motivates me even more. Now I'm attending more groups. And the dates approaching 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. Finally, by this time, I'm in another prison, right? CMC, San Silvestre. Talk about, this was like a park. The trees, the bushes, the grass. There were barracks. There weren't even dorms. There were barracks, like if you're in the military. But still, you have to tolerate a lot. You're an open dorm.
Especially open dorm.
People, still, maybe, doing, certain things that maybe you don't participate in. They're using the phone, they're drinking, they're smoking. So you have always be cautious about, make sure that you're not involved in that. But it was beautiful. I loved it. Again, my family's still going to visit me. But here it comes, my first opportunity, right? And I go in there. I prepare my relapse prevention plan. I got my parole plans. I got support letters for work. I got support letters for a home. I got a transitional house that I'm going to go to. I have character references. I'm prepared, right?
Yeah.
And I know that my crime was severe. No question about it. I own it. I'm responsible. I'm guilty. And I'm going to admit that. So I go in there. I go through the whole process. In the parole board, there's two board commissioners. There's correctional officer, 2 in there. There's your attorney. There's the DA, and there are also the victims if they choose to be there.
Oh, man.
They could
Really?
be present.
Deep. I didn't
Yes,
know that
they could
one.
be present if they choose to. So I get there. My victim's family are not there. No one's there. I go in there. We go through the process. It took about maybe 3.5 hours. And I went in there expecting to be denied, but just ready to just take responsibility for everything and be completely honest and transparent. Because my whole life I have deceived, I have betrayed, I have manipulated, I have controlled, I have misled. I didn't want to do that. I wanted just to come clean for the first time. And I did. I felt good. I got everything out. I admitted everything. I showed them my growth. They found me still not suitable.
Wow.
And I understood. I understood why. And they gave me the reasons, which was that they still felt that I was still manipulative, that I still needed some time to really touch on that area. So
When they said these things, were you like, I agree? Or were you more so like, how?
No. I understood because I was manipulative before going to prison, but in prison I also was manipulated the system in there as well, right? As my criminal mentality.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I recognized it. And I'm the one that actually admitted it to them. If I hadn't admitted, they would never know what I've done in there. But I admitted to them because I felt guilty. And I didn't want to live with that. I wanted to just put everything out. I wanted to relieve myself of that. So when they said it, I agreed. And I went back, and I said, okay, I'm going to work on it. I'm not going to give up. It's going to motivate me more.
Right.
But for my family, it was hard because they were expecting me to come home.
There was a lot of hope.
Especially my mother. My mother fell into a deep depression. And I went back, and as much as I tried to motivate her, tell her, Mom, it's going to be okay. I'm going to go back in about 2 years. Don't worry. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to come home.
They gave you that 2-year denial?
They don't give
Pretty
you a
good,
3-year
right? Isn't that
denial.
the smallest
What-
time?
It's a 3-year denial,
Okay,
but you know what 3 years really means 18 months, right?
I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, 3 years is really 18 months. So they give you the lowest is 3, but the most is 15. So I was just grateful to get 3-year denial.
Yeah,
'Cause I knew
yeah,
that I was going to come
definitely.
back in 18 months, right? So I explained that to them, but my mom really took it, the worst, because she was really expecting me to come home. So she fell into a depression, and my sister Yolanda, the night that I was denied, she wrote a letter. Actually, she wrote a poem that I want to read to you guys.
Yeah.
Right. So this was.
So this is right prior to your first
this is-
denial, and this is your
yes.
sister reaching out to you.
She didn't reach out. This was just her way of coping with the hurt and pain of me being denied. Okay, so the title is Ode to Sil, my brother. I watched him grow and feared his fate, the roads he took, the friends he made, the streets he walked and thought he conquered, the heart he broke, which laid asunder, the lives he took, the widows made, the tears and pain left in his wake. Now in his cell for years to come, my brother wonders what he has done. That it's too late to make up time. No turning back, but face his crimes. As the years go by, in his cell he remains. The angry young man no longer exists. Full of remorse, understanding, and pain, instead a wise man has taken his place. His spirit has healed, all covered in grace. The passage of time has marked my brother, myself, my siblings, and my mother. Despite it all, we have became stranger, bound to each other, afraid no longer, and never lost hope that the cell doors were open out will come my brother, free and no longer broken.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
When I read that, man, you know, it's just, I realized all the hurt, all the pain, all the disappointment that they were enduring, that she was enduring, but she chose a healthy way to express that pain by writing about it. And this is the best way to do it, because I've realized that we all endure trauma. We all endure fear, pain, hurt, betrayal, neglect, abandonment. And sometimes we want to just express that through violence. But that doesn't solve anything. That doesn't bring comfort and healing. We have to do it in a healthy way in order to really heal. And my sister, this was her way of healing. I'm sure it was hard for her to write. But reading this, all it did was just motivate me more. You know what? Now I got to come home. So I got more into my groups, more into church. And then I was able to drop from a level 2 to a level 1. 2018, I got a visit from my parents, my brother, my sister, and CMC. It was the last visit because I was getting ready to go to Soledad. And I went there and got into the groups again, continued. So I went from being a participating in groups. Now I want to facilitate them.
You're the one
Right now, I'm helping people. I'm letting them know, you know, what it is, the experiences, and I'm hearing other men share their stories, and I'm able to hear like, wow, I'm not the only one that suffered these traumas. They suffer too, you know. But the thing is that we never talked about it. Because we were told that, you know, you're a man. You just endure it. You take it. Don't cry. Don't shed no tears. You just, somebody hits you, you hit them back. Nah, man, that isn't the way you solve things. There has to be communication. There has to be love. There has to be resolution. So I'm understanding that all these men, they're good people too, and they've come to a realization when they've had an awakening and they were able to understand what it is that they've done, and now they want to get out. So many good people that I met, guys that I actually tried to kill in the street and have tried to kill me. I've actually been in cells with them. I got to meet them. I got to meet their families. They got to meet my families. These were cool guys that I really got close with. They became human beings to me. They were no longer my enemies. They were no longer a target. They were people just like me. They had mothers, grandmothers, children, siblings. And I got real close to them, and I realized, why didn't I ever have this opportunity while I was in the street? Because we were told, we were programmed that just because someone lives from another city or from another neighborhood, you're supposed to kill them. They're your enemies. They're not my enemies. They're just like me. They're just hurt too. They've been through trauma. They've been abandoned. They've been hurt. They've been neglected. And they want healing. And now it took us to go to prison to sit down in a group and start talking about our traumas and cry and admit and ask for forgiveness, and really come to understanding that, you know what we done, we caused a lot of havoc, we caused a lot of destruction, a lot of terror. It wasn't until I attended a group called Amity as a peer mentor that I got a chance to write a letter to Jose. And I remember we were given this task. The task was to write a letter to the person that's hurt you the most, and then write a letter to the person that you hurt the most. So the person that hurt me the most was my father. So I wrote him a letter, telling him that I forgave him. But of course, the person that I hurt the most was Jose. So I wrote him a letter. We came back. We were given this assignment on a Friday. We came back Sunday, and we gathered in a circle, and each person read his letter out loud.
Wow.
I was the last one. And I started to read this letter. I didn't bring it with me. But I started to read this letter. And I started to cry. Because for the first time, as I'm reading, I'm visualizing what I'm reading. and I'm hearing what I'm reading, and it's real, and I see what I had done to this young man. And I never felt that before. I never took the time to really think the hurt and pain that I caused him, what I did to his family. I scarred them for the rest of their life. But it was the beginning of me feeling remorse, feeling compassion, asking for forgiveness, but also forgiving. And the hardest person actually to forgive was myself, because a part of me still felt responsible for my brother's death. And I didn't know how to live with that. And I remember my sister would always tell me, Sil, it wasn't your fault. You were young. They made their choices too. Mm-hmm. You can't own that. You can't carry that with you. And it took me years, but I finally was able to accept that, yes, okay, I'm not responsible for that. But fast forward again, back to, I go now to Soledad. I'm on level 1, and here I am facilitating groups. CGA was one of my favorites because CGA was different from AA and NA. A lot of us that are in the lifestyle or that were in the lifestyle, our addictions weren't alcohol and drugs. You know, we may have experimented them, they may have, used them, but our addictions were the excitement and thrill of gangbanging, of writing on the walls, of receiving the praise from the homies, of being around the girls. That was a high. That was an addiction. Breaking, doing crime, getting away with it. That was thrilling for us, for me. And CGA, that's what it focuses on. So I would, we would have our groups, and then I got my opportunity once again, to go to board. Right? I'm excited. I'm ready. I worked on the area they told me to. I wrote a paper on it. I'm aware of it.
What was that area, real quick?
About how I still was manipulative, how I manipulated.
Okay, got you.
Because I manipulated my victims into believing that I came in peace, and now I had gone to prison and manipulated the system as well. So they still saw the connection, right? And in order for the board to find you innocent, they have to come to a decision that you are no longer a threat.
Real quick, not innocent, right?
I'm sorry, not innocent. I'm sorry.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was just like,
to find you suitable. Find you suitable, they have to believe that you are no longer a risk. You're no longer that same person. You're no longer a danger to society, which I understand, right? I wouldn't want somebody that's still violent or has violent tendencies to move next door to my family. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys wouldn't, nobody here would, right? So they're doing us a favor, and I get it. I want to make sure that I'm not that same person. So that's their job. So I appear, I go there, I'm ready. They give me a state appointed. I have my letters. I'm prepared. What I'm not prepared about is that I walk in there, and my victim's family is not there, but his brother is on the phone.
What do you mean on the phone?
So they have the option to be present or to be through audio.
And was this the brother that was next to him at the park?
That I also shot. Yes.
Gotcha.
This was the first time in 20-something years that finally happened. You guys finally had this interaction.
Yes, right. So we introduce ourselves. He's the last one. He states, and he basically says, that he shares who Jose was. Jose was a good kid, well liked in school. He liked crafts. He would bring drawings home to his mom. He was very obedient. And I took Jose from them. And I'm sitting there listening to him. And all these things I had imagined, right? I know human beings have lives. Human beings, they have certain personalities, characteristics, traits. But to hear it from his own brother, it made him more real. It made him more human. And I'm crying, and I'm like, oh my God. But I need to hear it. I need to hear the impact that I caused this man and his family. And he says that his mother was also fell into depression, that to this day they're grieving his loss, that he got heavily into drugs and alcohol, that it also impacted his family a great deal. So I'm like, oh man, I'm listening to it. So he stops. So we go on with the proceedings, right? We go on, I'm more emotional now. And I'm just like, oh man. So I'm talking. The hearing takes about maybe an hour and a half. We finish, closing statements. How do I feel? My attorney speaks, the DA speaks, and then it goes back to Miguel. And now he says, you know what? After hearing Silvestre speak, I could see that he's been changed. And I forgive him.
Oh, man.
That's all I wanted. And it hurt me more though, because a part of me feels like I shouldn't be forgiven. But this man forgave me. And he feels that I should be found suitable. So we walked out. They concluded their decision, came back. They found me suitable. But I wasn't happy.
Has
I
to
wasn't
be a
joyful.
bittersweet moment, huh?
Yeah. I went back to the yard. And in the yard, the way lifers know if you've been found suitable, if you come back smiling. If you've been found, if you were denied, you come back just sad. I came back sad. So nobody wanted to approach me. So I went to the phone. I called my mom. I let them know. They had already known, my attorney called them. And then somebody finally, I think they overheard me saying, I got found suitable. And they're like, hey, and they told me, how come you're not happy? And I told them, Jose's brother was on the phone and he shared about Jose and the impact, how he felt and how it devastated them, how they're still suffering. How can I be happy after that? And they understood. And I remember going back to CGA that next meeting and sharing that with them, because men need to know that, yes, though we have made some changes in our lives, we still planted a scar forever in our victims' families and in their lives and in their children that never even knew him. Jose's nephews and nieces will never have a chance to meet their uncle. He will never have a chance to have his own children. He will never have a chance to have a career. He will never have a chance to graduate and to give his parents that joy, that pride. He will never have a chance to marry and have a wife and children and make something of his life. Because I was hurt and I wanted to seek vengeance. That isn't fair.
Yeah. You essentially did the exact same thing that happened to you to someone else.
Exactly. Yeah. I destroyed another family the way my family was destroyed. Yeah. And now I have that in my conscience too. And I didn't feel closure after seeking revenge. I didn't feel comfort. I didn't feel peace. Yes, it's still, I created more trauma, more wounds, more destruction. I influenced other people to seek violence and revenge, and I planted that seed of hatred in other young minds and hearts. So I realized that today, and I remember getting out, right, waiting, because you have to wait. The final say-so is the governor, and that's the most stressful part of coming home, waiting for that. Those last 90 days, because he has the option to say no.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting, and finally he didn't deny. I get released a week later. My family picks me up. We drive back home. We're driving. We stop at a Mexican restaurant. My parents, my sister, my brother, 2 nieces pick me up, and I remember we stopped at a restaurant. And as happy as I am, as excited as I am to be free, I'm not used to being around so much people.
Yeah.
I'm not used to doing things that I want. I'm always told what to do, how to do it. So I'm sitting there ordering, and I need to go to the restroom, and I know where the restroom's at, but I can't go over there. I feel like, wait a minute.
No one's gonna watch me, tell me anything? No,
Yeah, but I finally got in there. I ate dinner. We had a great time. We stopped by. We went to the beach. I took off my shoes. I walked to the sand. I felt the sand in my feet. I felt the breeze. I heard the wind. I saw the waves. I felt just the coldness. it was beautiful. I felt finally like I was planted on earth once again, you know. And my brother and my sister experienced that with me. And we walked back. I spent the night at my parents' house that day.
Real
and the
quick,
next day,
sorry to cut you off. How old are you when you're doing?
okay, so I went in to prison at 23, and I was released a few months prior to my 50th birthday. So most of my adult life, I've been incarcerated.
And then even some years prior to that, you were in Tijuana.
Yeah,
you
so
were on
I
the
was,
run, so
yeah,
still.
yes.
Just
yes.
and I asked because the way you even talked about it, you just sound like a kid that was just brought into the world, like a kid that was just brought into the world, and is experiencing everything for the first time.
I felt it, for the first time, a second opportunity, and you know what? Honestly, it's only through the grace of God that I'm free, because by law, I should still be in prison, by law.
Yeah.
And that's why I committed myself to making amends and helping my community, my families, the youth, to think about their actions, to know how gifted and how precious they are, so they don't ever have to grow up thinking that they have to use violence to gain acceptance or respect from other people. To go into schools and to get their education, and to have a voice in society. My sister would always tell me, she was saying, Sil, if you want to make a difference, you have to do it from within. And I never understood what that meant, from within. What does that mean?
Yeah.
She meant educate yourself,
Right.
put yourself in situations where you're part of the chair, you're a committee, you have a voice, and you're able to say, look we need these programs. We need these in our communities for our children. We need resources. We need activities. We need schools. We need outreach. We need food. We need mentors to come in and help. That's what she meant. I took it all wrong. I was making things worse for our community, because by being violent, by breaking the law, now I'm making other people afraid of Mexicanos, of cholos. I went about it all wrong. I contributed to making laws more severe. I contributed to other people following my footsteps. There was a young man that when I was locked up, he got in there. He ended up joining the former gang that I belonged to. And now he had life. And I felt so responsible and guilty, because he grew up hearing about me and wanting to follow my footsteps, and look at now he was. But I was able to tell him, bro, I'm sorry, but everything that I did, this is really the reason. These are the consequences, and this is why I did
reality.
it. And you don't have to live this. So don't go come in here and want to get involved and want to continue and build a name for yourself. It's not worth it. Focus on you and your mom. Try to do something and get out. There's hope. Even though it may not seem like it right now, there's an opportunity for you to go home. And yes, laws were coming out. After the 260, which was 18 and under, 261 came out, which 25 and under. So it brought in it because they realized that a human brain doesn't fully develop until the age of 25. So yes, definitely responsible for making choices, but by law, you're not considered an adult. So that's why they brought this law or this bill into action. And that was my opportunity to come home. And coming home was difficult because I had to go to a transitional home a day after I was released. But I was able to get my Social Security, my birth certificate, an ID. I started to practice for my driver's license, which I maybe about 4 weeks later, I received. I got a job as being a school mentor for the youth. That is my passion. I know that's my gift. I'm not an office worker. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not gonna be working in the agriculture. I am a social person. I need to be around people. I need to connect. I need to listen to them. I need to motivate them. I need to love them, to guide them, to validate them, and we have to do it in a way that's healthy and very rewarding. And this is what I find rewarding, being with them. So I knew that I was in the right field. After 6 months, I went back home, and that was difficult. That was difficult because I've been away for
They're
26
not
and a half
used to you.
years.
Yeah, they're not used
As
to
much as they love
Silvestre.
me,
Yeah.
we have different living styles, you know? So we had to learn to adapt, and also there's still a lot of trauma, a lot of open wounds in my family.
Yeah.
Even though they've gone to visit me, there's still wounds that are still open, so we still need to talk and resolve them. We're still to this day, we're still dealing with a lot of trauma that we're trying to heal from, and it's difficult. But there's still a lot of temptations out there for me. Triggers, like I said, yelling, being controlling. Sometimes I don't realize it, but I can be controlling. I want things done my way, and people have to kind of sometimes remind me, "Hey, Sil, I think you're," and then I have to be aware of that. There's still part of me that little kid still is afraid of certain things. Relationships. I have a hard time with relationships. I'm used to being by myself. I'm used to doing what I want when I want. That I'm afraid to let people in my heart. I'm afraid of being hurt. I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of being betrayed. So I guard myself. That's what our youth do. They guard themselves too. So I understand that. But that's what trauma does. So I'm still seeking counseling. I have a support network of friends, my brother, at work, at church. I talk to people because I know that I'm in recovery. I'm never going to be completely healed. But I am in
And
a
I think there's
place-
nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
That's the ongoing process. You can never be a better, it's an ongoing thing. It's never, you're going to always try to strive to be a better you.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
not?
yeah. But what I do today, I work for a reentry.
Okay.
I'm able
So
to
you've
help
been out
people.
how long now?
I've been out. This May it'll be 4 years, and it seems like only months.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's only
4
been
years.
yes. I celebrated my 50th birthday, best birthday. Family
50,
was
huh?
over, sober. There was no alcohol, no drugs. Everybody had a good time. It was great. I got to speak. I got to share. Thank everybody.
I don't think this guy would like that type of party.
Hey, don't judge me on my. Nah, man. I would love that kind of party. What you mean? Go
But
ahead.
it was, it's just different from what our family's used to, right? Because our family,
Definitely.
that's what we
Banda,
had.
alcohol.
Yeah, but
people
now
in and
things
out.
are different. We're maturing. We're learning that it was just because we thought we had to numb our feelings. But now we're showing that we could have a good time in a sober, healthy manner. I was able to finally also discharge from parole 7 months ago.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. My goal is to work at a high school or junior high as a restorative practice intervention specialist, which basically means just an advocate for the students. And I would like to do that at a continuation school because that's where I went through. That's considered like they think the kids are, that's it. They will never amount to
From the
anything.
outside looking in, I think that's kind of like the second step or their last step before they
Yes.
really dive
Yes.
deep into the streets. So that's
Exactly.
a good way to,
observation. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where I want to go. Unfortunately, I'm not able to right now because of my record, because of my past. Again, another consequence of my past actions that I didn't even foresee and even consider. But sometimes, we have to consider those because they could have a long-term consequence on our lives. But I'm not going to give up. I'm in a place, like I said, where we're able to help people that are have been impacted by gangs, drugs, incarceration, and violence. So I'm in my community. I'm with people, with families, mothers, grandmothers, youth, sisters, brothers that want different for their families. And I'm able to be a part of that and to see their growth
awesome.
and to see these young men say, hey,
Yeah.
you know what, man? Thank you for sharing. I too was abandoned or teased as a kid, or I couldn't read and I was made fun of and it hurt me. Man, that's beautiful. Now we're getting to the root of it.
I'll say that's why you're there. You're like, I want to help you
Yes.
discover
Yeah.
those things.
Yes. And I encourage them to start talking about it. And I remind them if there's one thing I got to emphasize is that every single human being, especially our youth out there, you are precious. You are beautiful. You are smart. You're courageous. You're capable. You're resilient. And you're worthy. And you have to really believe it. And all we are is putting up that mirror so you could see the reflection of yourself. Once you believe it, no matter what people say, no matter what people would do, it won't change. Though it may hurt, it may sting, but you have to remind yourself who you truly are. And once you do that, you start seeing the world differently. You start treating people differently. You start having a different perspective on people. And you start noticing that, you know what? When someone's mean to me, when someone yells at me, when someone insults me, I wonder what happened to them.
Yeah.
I wonder what they experienced.
Yeah.
Did they receive ridicule? Were they verbally or physically abused? Were they abandoned? Were they yelled at? And most of the cases, there is some trauma in their lives. That's why they behave that way. Mm-hmm. So you're able to have more empathy now and understanding into people. And that is what I want everyone to recognize, to see that, to not be upset, but to care for that person, to have some compassion and get to know them and be kind. Maybe that's all that person wants. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not used to it. So those are things that to this day I'm able to do. I also went back to school. I'm going for my BA.
Nice.
Hopefully I transfer pretty soon. I'm taking statistics right now. I left the hardest work.
He's on the numbers game.
You know what I mean? But it's challenging. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm taking one in person, one online, and I love it. It really has built my self-esteem. I'm more secure, more confident, and I definitely encourage people that education is also something that they should all proceed, because that is really what's gonna make us powerful. It's not a physical strength; it's an emotional and a mental strength. And that's where we really have our voices.
Go, man. Couldn't have said any better.
Yeah. I think that with that being said, I think that was a great podcast. We appreciate you for shooting through, sharing your testimony. I think it was one of the most powerful ones we've shared, you know what I mean? And it really resonated,
Thank you.
So, and if there's anything you want to shout out or anything that you want to promote or anything, go, feel free.
Okay. Well, thank you all for this opportunity. It is about recognizing and accepting self. One of my favorite quotes is, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." Pablo Picasso. Each one of us possesses gifts, though you may not know them now, but it's your responsibility to discover them. And with the help of many mentors and counselors and family members, you can do so. Well, once you find those gifts, you just can't hold on to them. It's our responsibility to give them out. The same way that it was given to you, you must also give it out. And once you do it, you will see how rewarding that is, how much of a role model you can be, a positive role model and influence to people's lives. Because right now, you have young people, your little brothers and sisters, you may not realize it, they're already looking up at you. They're looking at everything that you do, everything you say, and they want to follow you. Are you going to mislead them in the right direction, or are you going to lead them? Are you going to lead them in the right direction, or are you going to mislead them in the wrong direction? It's up to you to make that choice. Thank you very much for listening. I know that each one of you possesses so much gifts and qualities, and you have that choice to live them out and to make your own choices, to stand by yourself and do what is right for you and for your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Silvestre.
With that being said, Reentry Network Podcast, let's get it, baby.
We out.